Hello and a warm welcome to another episode of AVANT-GARDE-GRASP. I'm Shivatmika,
And I'm Roshni.
and we hope you all are staying safe amidst this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The discussion we will be having today will be around the concept of feminism, mostly focusing on the issues and context of Nepal. So, Roshni, growing up, when would you say was the first time you heard of the word feminism or feminist and that you identified with it?
Well, I don't really remember about the first time I heard about feminism, but then it must be when I was 17, 18, or so. And the first time I identified myself as a feminist was when I understood the concept of feminism and when I echoed with its parallel universe of inclusivity.
Right. So even for me, I don't exactly remember when and where I came to learn about the terms. It just feels like I've always resonated with it. If I have to think and pinpoint a memory, probably Malala and her situation was also one of the biggest points for me to realize the resonance of the word. नभए पहिल्यैबाट पनि स्कुलमा when we're taught about different प्रथाहरू, different cultural practices in Nepal, which pushed women backwards, learning about this enraged me, and whatever I did or believed in equated with the concept of feminism.
Wow, that's really great. So, growing up, when you compare the situation of the past and of now, how to say this safe space of feminism had changed, or has it?
Right. I think talking about feminist spaces, internet has provided me a very important space for me to learn and unlearn. Frankly, भन्नुपर्दा, growing up, घरमा चाहिँ we did not have much of a discussions. भयो नि, not very deep, which led me to talking with my friends and slowly learning from the internet. Also, from where I have met such great, inspiring feminists, those I can openly discuss about such issues. And just comparing a few years ago and now, I can sense and have seen the upbringing of so many issues that were discussed before. अनि अहिले चाहिँ एकदमै खुलेर हुन्छ. Similar यो इस्युसँगै आएको टर्म्सहरू फेमिनिस्ट फेमिनिजम पनि आएको छ. Acknowledging the importance of discussion of such issues, it also gives me hope and happiness seeing many आफ्नै siblings and along with them the younger generation being rightful and learning and unlearning so many needed things. सानै उमेरबाट. It really gives me a hope for the future generation. Ani, what about you, Roshni?
Well, so you have included most of my concerns. So
Okay.
this, if I need to add, it has not been an inclusive space yet. But then obviously the perspectives are changing in a positive way regarding feminism. I know. Honestly speaking, I still do not see, really see a safe space of feminism in technical field or in spacecrafts or many areas. Okay? It could
Right.
have been combined and as elaborative as it is on currently developed feminist ethics, bioethics, and the feminist environmental philosophy. Today, yes, a female voice is heard in works of, like space philosophy, let's say space ethics or space policy, or many new terminologies that male are acquainted with, right? But it is not enough. Like in the other fields of philosophy and ethics, traditionally dominated and shaped throughout centuries by males, we need a new feminist approach that will bind all subjects all together. Like we are still on the process towards achieving this. अनि अर्को एउटा नयाँ concept now is about intersectionality, right? Like women's intersecting identities, like meaning that they were impacted by a multitude of social justice and human rights issues. But then, in this era, like to many conservatives, intersectionality means because you are a minority, you get special standards, special
Right.
treatment in the eyes of some. I know, but then it's all about checking our privilege before we ask for our feminist space. It is not about building a racial hierarchy with unprivileged women at the top, but it is indeed an attempt to demolish racial hierarchies altogether. So, yes, we are somehow pertaining towards achieving that space.
All right. I absolutely understand that. Thank you for being inclusive and including everything. Ani, joining our discussion today, we also have Akriti Gimre. Hello and welcome to our podcast, Akriti. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi Shivatmika, hi Roshni. Thank you so much for having me here. So, to introduce myself, I'd like to begin by calling myself a feminist. And professionally speaking, I'm currently in my fourth year of undergraduate studies at New York University, Abu Dhabi. I'm majoring in legal studies, and hopefully, someday soon enough, I'll become a lawyer.
That's lovely. So, how have you been? How are you spending your days during the quarantine?
Quarantine has been pretty okay, I guess. The best part is that I've taken a social media break and I really like it. I honestly don't miss it. And I mean, to stay in contact, I email my friends abroad or give a call to those who are here. My days are pretty much staring at the screen, whether to read, write, but pretty much that's it.
That's great. And what about you, Roshni? How have you been spending your time during the quarantine?
Lately, the quarantining thing has been a little hectic, but then I have been managing my time to indulge in many amazing projects done by Rotary Club of Kaman University Medical School. Besides that, Shivat and I had just completed our course on leadership and organizing, which was amazing. And I personally have been like a part of many model United Nations as a DIAS member. So yeah, it's going very hectic plus very interesting at the same
That's
time.
right. So, you have been remaining busy. So, let's dive into the topic, shall we? So, even though everyone has their own definition of what feminism means personally to them, it's surrounded around a similar concept. अब डिक्सनरी अनुसार जानु हो भने चाहिँ Merriam Websterले चाहिँ defines feminism as the theory of political, economic, and social equality of the sexes, as well as organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. For me personally, feminism is an ongoing struggle against sexist oppression, an ongoing struggle to end the oppression of women, non binary, and queer people. At its core, feminism for me is about equality of everyone, regardless of gender, class, caste, sexual orientation, disability, and so on. I'm sure you guys have your own interpretation of the term Hainata. So, Roshni, what does feminism mean to you?
For me, feminism is the doctrine of advocating social, political, and all other associated rights of women of any races, class, language, nationality, ethnicity, religion, and sexual orientation. And I believe in the kind of feminism that would not function to silence or marginalize some women by universalizing the claims of relatively privileged women.
Right, and Akriti, what about you?
Definitely, the core of feminism is about equality for everyone. And feminism, to me, additionally, is also about choice. So, not having someone else decide what kind of clothes you should wear, what kind of sexuality you can be, whether you can express yourself freely or not, whether you can cry as a man or not, whether as a woman you can talk loudly or not, whether you're pro abortion, whether you're pro homosexuality or pro everything, so you being able to choose without having that societal constraints about things. So to me, feminism is also about choice, and it's not just a feminist. Being a feminist is not just a title that you confer it to yourself. I think it's a lifestyle, and it's a lifestyle in a way about you being conscious of how you speak, the kind of words that you use, choosing gender neutral words, or the way that I think about my mother and father, or the way that I deal with other people, or whether I actively choose the kind of books that I read or not, whether I read books written by women or watch movies directed by women or not. So it's about me reflecting in my daily interactions as well, so that I don't offend anyone else, so that I'm not using derogatory terms towards someone else. So to me, it's a lifestyle, and it's not just a term that I use to argue with people. And the other interesting part is that where I can define my own feminism right now as we're having this conversation, Shivatmika has her own definition, Roshni has her own definition of feminism. And the fact that we can call it my feminism, I think that's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Also, women in Nepal constitute one of the biggest subordinated groups here, who are left far behind from their male counterparts. Even exercising fundamental human rights is something that is difficult for women to pursue. If we were to go back in time and study the power women had in society, we would see that they performed an active role in every critical turning point of the society with leadership that than male since Vedic era. They were treated as equal to men. But as the society seemingly progressed, society has practiced anti feminist ways and have treated women differently, leaving women far behind. And because of this practice being carried on forever since then, there still is an ongoing struggle for equality. So, Akriti, with voices of different powerful women in our history, when you think about the feminist movement in Nepal, which powerful figure comes to your mind who has paved the path of equality for the future generation?
When I think about the feminist movement in Nepal, I think of a very understudied woman, Yogmaya. Talking about her, she was born in Bhojpur, was married as a child, and when her husband died and they took her to Sati, she ran away. And later on, she became an ascetic, gave up all the material needs in life. She advocated for abolishment of sati pratha, child marriage, advocated for remarrying a widow with her consent, of course. She was very vocal against caste inequality. And above all, she even led a peaceful revolution against the autocratic Rana regime. She led a Jal Samadhi in Bhojpur, where 67 people gave their lives in Arun River as a protest against the autocratic Ranas. And I wonder why we never read about her growing up, you know? She has been such an interesting figure for me because of her eclectic life, the intersection of politics, spirituality, and activism, all three aspects that I'm really interested in. So for me, she really stands out. And apart from that, I do think that it's also important that we acknowledge the female combatants in Civil War, Jan Andolan 1 and Jan Andolan 2. Then again, we don't have many women to idolize historically, because our history has been so biased against women. Honestly, even today, when you look into परिवारको वंशावलीहरू हुन्छ नि हो त्यसको if you just look into them, you will barely find women's names. न छोरीको नाम लेखेको हुन्छ कति फ्यामिलीजहरूको वंशावलीमा, न बुहारीको नाम लेखेको हुन्छ. It's technically as though कि family treesमा women don't exist even coming to this age.
So, exactly, Akriti. Yogmaya actually established Nari Samiti in 1980. She was the first feminist of Nepal, but we didn't recognize her. I personally did not find about Yogmaya until when I actually attended a class about feminism in Nepal. So, राणा कालमा भएको जुन शोषण र उत्पीडनहरू या त जति नै दमनहरू भइएको थियो होइन त्यति बेला सबै क्रेडिटहरू चाहिँ it was given to Chandra Samsar, right? So Yogmaya was not credited for all of that. So त्यति बेलादेखि नै there was a kind of a movement that actually voiced out for the feminism and for the rights of women itself. So yeah.
Right. So I absolutely agree with you both. When I came to know about Yogamaya Neopani, I felt like we had been robbed of such important information. She has played a huge role in defining the women's status in Nepal. She's such an important figure for us. I really believe we should have learned about her in school. And talking about similarly, women like Parizat, who has helped shape Nepali literature. Well, we did learn about her a bit school mapani, but just learning about her life more provides courage and hope in some other great ways as well. So moving on, although there are many issues concerning women's rights in Nepal that need to be addressed, one that requires urgent attention is the discriminatory citizenship law and constitutional provision, which has deprived women and prevented them from passing on citizenship to their children. And this has affected millions of people across the country. Reforms to nationality legislation have enabled Nepali women to transfer their nationality to their children. But the battle has only been half won. For example, a child born to a Nepali female citizen from marriage with a foreign citizen in Nepal may be granted naturalized citizenship. but only after producing proof that a child has not acquired citizenship of his father's nation. These conditions do not exist for a child born to a Nepali male citizen from marriage with a foreign national. These constitutional and legal provisions are a reflection of patriarchal societal order that Nepal still is. It is severely impacting the lives of Nepali women and their children. So let's discuss about this.
To me personally, it is discriminatory, and not just against women, but against Madhesi women in particular. This debate is so intricate that there's a clash between nationalism and gender equality. Now, parliamentarians have commented that the provisions are to protect the sovereignty of the nation, but how is it fair to do so by checking the mobility of women? Because this provision in place, it heavily discourages women to marry foreigners. And I'm not seeking any sort of encouragement, but having an institutional provision as such, it institutionalizes patriarchy. And if parliamentarians were so concerned about a country's sovereignty, they should focus on patrolling the borders effectively, being more diplomatic in their relationship with their neighbors, having universal but well outlined policies for the process of acquiring citizenship. If you're not providing citizenship for 7 years, then provide an identity card during that period of time. We've all seen PR for Canada, Australia, green card for the US. Why don't they have such provisions instead of placing the burden of an entire country's sovereignty on women's vagina? Again, and think about it. If you and I, we were to get married to foreigners, or if we were to become single mothers, would these provisions in any way make our lives easier? No.
Yes, I completely echo with that. Surely the problem arising from women's constitutional inability to independently pass on citizenship to children is conceivably a huge problem. So, another controversial new law in Nepal, which is yet to go into effect, states that it would recognize children born out of wedlock by considering their parents married, even if they are not. Even though the implementation in the society will take some time getting used to, some believe it will prevent long term difficulties in citizenship, school registration, and medical care, which are often denied to children born out of wedlock here. Many have expressed discomfort with the new law, namely the legal assumption of marriage that will automatically give citizenship to children born out of wedlock and force men to take financial responsibility for the child, while others say the change will push society to update its definition of family and women's rights. What do you personally think about this new law? Do you think this law will increase women's access to reproductive health options? Or do you think without amendments to the law to clarify vague issues like what circumstances would trigger the marriage provision, or when a single mother would be allowed to have a child, it would not be very effective in the society?
To me, this is completely against feminism and against choice. It forces marriage upon two people who may not choose to be married. Like, by saying that they want to bring by the policymakers want to bring about this policy, considering that considering them to be married, that means the state does recognize how difficult it is for a single mother in her life to living in Nepal. If a state makes that judgment, that means the solution is not to force marriage upon the parents of the child. It is rather to respect their decisions as parents and to ensure that each single parent, single mother, single father, both single fathers, whoever, they have as much access to facilities and services as any other child with two parents have. I don't think there should be any circumstances under which marriage can be triggered. Marriage is something that has to be consensual and not forced upon, and that too by a state. It's infringing their freedom. And moreover, this question about women's reproductive health options, I don't think women's reproductive health options should be dependent on whether one is married or not, whether one has a child or not. While single mothers do face a lot of problems on bureaucratic level, even on social levels, but tackling that should not be by forcing a man onto her. This is to say that a woman can never be independent, that a state is ensuring that a woman will always be dependent upon a man for every single right in her life. And again, institutional patriarchy, regressive laws. How far will we move ahead in this movement? And it just complicates, even it creates more complications between individuals who choose to have surrogate mothers or have test tube babies, or, like, for example, talk about sperm donors. That means, will every sperm donor be married to how many women? That means, will they also allow polygamy, you know? So, in fact, honestly, drifting off a little bit, it really bothers me that gynecologists, like, I had a gyne visit a few days ago, and a question that they ask, like, am I married or not? Like, why is whether me being married or not, what does it have to do any sort of facilities that I'm seeking for? And of course, there comes this notion about premarital sex and everything, but still, like, I really found that question very much offensive. And also about when you go and buy contraceptive pills, let's say, like, you can be buying contraceptive pills for any reason, right? Why does a and like any person out there, a pharmacist, have to ask whether one is married or not? So these are just questions I wish we didn't have to deal with, and that our reproductive services that we get in life should not be contingent upon whether we have a man in life or not.
Right, I absolutely agree with that. Ani कुरै गर्दा जाँदाखेरि unlike the deep-rooted belief, many women in our lives now have jobs. They are out here providing their services in different, unique fields. This is a reform in its own way. But what still exists is that these women are still expected to come back home and do the household work. There still remains no division of chores. There still remains expectations from women to bear the sole responsibility of the household work. This feels like saying if you want to work, then find out a way to balance your work and the household work. Due to this, some women sacrifice their interest and even passion to take care of their family. Doesn't this feel like taking a step ahead but yet remaining stationary at the same time?
It is taking a step ahead in allowing, quote unquote, allowing women to go and work, and at the same time them having to do every single work in the household because there is no balance. I remember this conversation that I had with my Ghorko Cheuko beauty parlor ko auntie, that she told me that she used to work as a radio jockey, Radio Nepalma paila RJ ko काम गर्छिन्थ्यो यताउति, but she had to give that up because she had a child अनि बच्चा हेर्नु पर्यो अनि अब हस्बेन्डको त जब जस्ताको तस्तै थियो, but she had to give up her job अनि पछि बच्चाको स्याहार सुसार हेऱ्यो यताउति, त्यसपछि she opened a beauty parlor अनि she's working there हुन्छ नि. So it's like a woman had to give up her dreams, this or that, for a man, but like a man's life doesn't change much. Like, why is एउटा बच्चा हुर्काउने काम completely एउटा woman को, घरको सबै भित्रको काम entirely a woman को? And it's like, घरमा कोही, if you put any helper घरमा, you will recognize their work हुन्छ नि, you will pay them हुन्छ नि, तर घरमा आमाले गरेको काम, मम्मीले गरेको काम, त्यो कामको त you won't even consider that as work. Okay, so this demands an equal division of household works, like proper recognition hunu parcha unpaid care work ko pani. And moreover, like your mundane task huncha ni, cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, utensils haru, why are these labeled as women's chores? Like, this is basic human work. So, like, by gendering, it is actually limiting so many people from actually learning these basic life skills. Everyone should have these skills. So I just wish that this wasn't a gendered task, but then everyone actually understood it as that, and maybe we would be much more progressive in making ensuring that women had the balance in their professional life as well as their personal life.
Yes, Akriti. Also, there are women's rooted division of class and caste in Nepal. Even though the fight of feminism is the same, the division has created a huge gap in the fights as well. Women from this socially defined lower caste and class are struggling just to be acknowledged. For them, it is not only their gender that pulls them back, but also their class and caste do. Their fight remains about existing in society. However, it feels like the upper caste women have been trying to control the narratives and also have been in the spotlight for a long time. But the way all of us can move ahead is if we all are on the same piece of the fight. Even though the world has progressed and has moved towards a new phase, a majority of Nepali people face the struggle of mere existence. What do you personally think about this huge gap?
Of course, Ani, like right now, look at us, three upper caste women living in the hills, having an intellectual conversation. It's our privilege. But I don't think that either you or I will ever be able to speak for experiences of other women, say Madhesi women, Badi women, Chepang women. Like a simple example, म मेरो गाउँमा जाँदाखेरि सुनसरीमा मेरो एकजना मधेसी फ्रेन्ड छ मेरै एजको who got married immediately after grade 10 कि किन भन्दाखेरि a guy came to ask her hand in marriage अनि their family was like okay sure Bandra, and it's unfortunate that she got married. She didn't want to get married. And she gave me a simple example ki like hamro textbook tells us ki gumto pratha no longer exists, right? But she tells me that every time that she goes to her in-laws she mandatorily has to cover her head with a veil. So the stories that we as Khas Aryans have been reading, hamro government sanctioned textbooks, they're not representative of women of lower caste or class. So Tuba, everything has to change for this gap to be addressed, from our educational textbooks to every single material that is available on Nepal. Ani, this gap exists, and the way to mitigate this gap is by bringing these women to the forefront of every aspect, be it by providing them with job opportunities, ensuring their rights, ensuring our policies are inclusive, and our policies in schools, colleges, government offices are not discriminatory, and there are no such practices happening in place. And also our vocabularies have to be updated. Kosto language bolnu huncha, kosto language bolnu hunna, which language is offensive, and everything has to be put in place. And also short term solution to this is reservation for minorities and disadvantaged people, but hopefully years down the line reservation will not be necessary, that is assuming that our society will be much more equitable soon.
Right. So, Thaupadi Pratha, it is one of the traditional practices rooted in some of the culture practice in Nepal, especially in the mid and far western Nepal. The Supreme Court of Nepal issued a directive against the tradition in 2005, but due to the lack of legislation, Thaupadi was not criminalized. It continued to flourish predominantly in Nepal's mid and far western regions, where it is estimated up to 95% of women and girls practice Thaupadi. These led to passing of a law in 2017 that would punish people who would force women to sleep outside during their menses. Still, the practice of exiling women during their menses exists in some villages. It was only in 2019 that saw the first arrest in Nepal connected to the practice. The fact that it took nearly 18 months for the first arrest to be made is proof that the law will be extremely difficult to enforce. It is also found that many girls and young women were aware that Thaupadi is illegal, but then that knowledge made them no less likely to practice Thaupadi. Thaupadi being the highlight, the problem still goes beyond the hut. Even in the rest of Nepal, untouchability during menstruation, Nepalima, not suni, pani bhaन्छौँ नि, it is practiced even till death. The practice of untouchability during menstruation is really rooted deep in our society. So let's talk about this.
Yes, and it's a great legislative step that the government has taken by, first of all, acknowledging that Chaupadi is not just a social issue, but also a political issue. And you see that this is not going to go away by simply enacting laws and by destroying sheds and everything. A simple, like, analogy that can be drawn is with हाम्रो normal families living in Kathmandu के कति काठमाडौँको घरमा त पिरियड्स हुँदाखेरि मान्छेहरूलाई किचनमा जान दिँदैन कुनै पनि सोफामा बस्न दिँदैन आफ्नो बेडमा सुत्न दिँदैन त्यो भनेपछि अछाम बझाङ बाजुरा जस्तो ठाउँमा वेयर एजुकेसन त बेयरली छ मान्छेहरूसँग अनि त्यो एउटा कल्चरल रिलिजियस belief यति धेरै ingrained छ कि it's really difficult for them to imagine a life beyond that. So त्यो भएपछि moreover girlsहरूले यतिसम्म internalize गरिसकेको छ कि it's very difficult to actually get rid of it हुन्छ नि. So त्यसको solution would be most probably having a place where women on their periods can experiment themselves हुन्छ नि without you trying and experimenting हुन्छ नि पिरियड्समा भएको बेलामा किचनमै गएर खाना पकाएर हेर्दा लाइक कसरी चाहिँ पाप लाग्दो रहेछ अथवा लाइक हुन्छ नि त्यो आफैले एक्सपेरिमेन्ट गर्दा नगर्दासम्म आई डोन्ट थिङ्क इट्स एभर गोइङ टु गो अवे अनि त्यो वुमेनहरूबाट त्यो ल्याउनको लागि वाट वी क्यान डु इज वी क्यान टेल देम द्याट देयर इज एन अल्टरनेटिभ पोसिबल के so this is going to take a lot of time and a lot of patience. Of course, there are a lot of grassroots level organizations that are working in there, but कसैलाई फोर्स गरेर यो चेन्ज आउनेवाला छैन. It has to come from within themselves. But I think पहिला सुरुमा चाहिँ people need to be aware that a life beyond that, a quote unquote pure life beyond that is still possible. तर also about this legislative को कुरा गर्दाखेरि डिसेम्बरमा जुन रिपोर्टेड भिक्टिम जसको डेथ भएको थियो उहाँको ब्रदर इन ललाई चाहिँ पुलिसले कस्टडीमा लिएको थियो तर अनअफिसियल रिपोर्ट्स फ्रम अछाम देव सेड कि हिज आउट अन बेल सो लाइक ही वाज पनिस्ड only with having to report to police twice monthly for 3 months. So that means that was it. So that means कि legislative law arrest गर्यो भन्दैमा लिगल एक्सन पनि त केही राम्ररी भएको रहेनछ त पुलिसले आफ्नो काम पनि त त्यहाँ राम्ररी गरेको छैन त भनेपछि इज इट अल यो लज पनि भन्नको लागि मात्र हो त
Yes, in addition to what Akriti has said, on a slight harsh note, the access to water as well as sanitation and convenient disposal or cleaning facilities, like to manage menstruation hygienically at a very practical level, is also not available. Only many households in urban areas, including Kathmandu itself, it prohibits menstruating women from entering kitchens or temples or eating with a family or sleeping in their own beds, perpetuating their social ostracization. So, yeah, that brings us to the end of our discussion today. So, is there anything you want to say to the people listening to this?
Um, a thing that I'd want to say is let's all be feminists. But like, if I know the title irks a lot of people, and I think what I would suggest you is just go sit with your female identifying friends or sit with your mother and just ask them about their life. Just sit there and listen to them. Maybe they will inspire you about feminism and they'll tell you why it is necessary that our world and our ways of life have to change. And another thing that I'd want to say to us who identify as feminists is that whenever we talk about feminism, we're often clashing with hamre mothers or grandmothers because so much of their belief doesn't align with us and there's so much of clash happening there. So feminism ko idea was to uplift women हुन्छ नि so if हाम्रो feminismमा we're clashing with our mothers and grandmothers भनेपछि how great is our feminism or how good enough is our feminism? Actually, this is something that one of my acquaintances had asked me. So, this is a question that I'm still trying to navigate, and I really think that it's time that all of us we at least give it a thought.
Thank you so much, Akriti, for this insightful chat. We really enjoyed having this discussion with you. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you so much, Shivatmika and Roshni, for deeming my words worthy. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I extremely enjoyed this. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Akriti. And discussing the issues going on, it feels like we have a very long way to go, but it also gives me a hope for our progress and hope we will have a better future of feminist space.
Right, I'm sure we all have imagined a safe space for everybody. Day host ki night ma host, internet host ki real life may host. Well, I have definitely imagined a better and safe space for everybody in the future. त्यसको लागि, we still have so much to fight for. We can never rest until everyone is treated equally, regardless of their gender, caste, class, orientation, disability, and so on. And I also hope we all accept the idea that it's never too late to learn, to unlearn. I feel like that is very necessary. And I hope everyone learns the importance of being a feminist and having a proper and safe feminist space.
Yes, Shivat. Now we are at the end of this episode, and we're so thankful to all of you for listening this episode. And we hope that you all are staying safe, and yeah, stay home and stay safe and stay hydrated. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned and always subscribe to our channel. So yeah, bye.